Greetings and welcome to what is the very first episode, a very special first episode of Star Car Garage, the show. Here I am joined by the bane of my existence, Izzy Boyan.
Hello.
And our resident granddad, Chris Ball.
Oh yeah, right. In this trilogy, we're going to be talking about what's the best budget compact Mazda to buy.
Well, yes, but because of budget cuts, unfortunately, we have had to bring our own cars. And by our own cars, I mean these two actually belong to Chris, and Alfie brought his mother's car. Alright, now as much as Chris legally, technically still owns this car, is still in his name, it actually lives with me and I drive it every single day. Which means I have a really good hand-on experience with what it is actually like to live with. Now, despite being over 20 years old now, it actually does boast quite a reasonable comfort in the seats and in the interior system in general. So it has had an upgraded sound system put in because I enjoy music and I do enjoy long drives with music, and a 6-stacker CD is very early 2000s. Now, I don't personally even own 6 CDs, but that's what these come with from the factory. Other than that, it is very, very standard in here. Such things as power steering, doesn't have it. Traction control, pretty sure it doesn't have that. ABS, definitely doesn't have that. Cruise control, not a thing. It is very simple, which means mechanically it is a very simple car overall and leaves very little to actually go wrong with it. The interior itself is quite spacious, both front and rear, and does boast a rather large amount of storage in the boot for a car of its size as well.
So we find us inside the cabin of the 323 now to talk about how it is to drive, first impressions, because Izzy's driven this every day, Chris hasn't driven it in a while, and I have only just driven it. Now, we haven't filmed that simply because of insurance purposes, which will...
We also didn't have the budget for the petrol to drive it. To
drive it on film, because obviously it's weightier with cameras in here. But yes, my first impressions would be, I do wonder if, you said it's a 1.8, didn't you, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
I am very sure.
Where have the other 0.4 litres gone?
It's a 1.8 litre engine from 2001, so it's not overly gutsy. It's quite gutless, really. Especially if you've got the aircon on, you've got no power at all. Yeah,
I did notice that flat hills are this car's friend.
The funny thing is, though, if you're on a flat and you turn the aircon off, it launches itself sideways and goes off that quick. But then you're back to having no power pretty quick.
Right.
Yes, when we were, well, obviously having road tested this extensively because I drive it every day, it does quite often struggle in hill climb scenarios. Especially going up, quite often I'll go up Mount Mee, I'll go out Samford Way, and you really have to put your foot into it, and even then, it can be a little sluggish. But that being said, majority of what I do every day is drive around the city, and it is a fantastic little city car. It's very light to handle, it's very easy to park, you can go lock to lock within very minimal turns, which does make it quite nippy and quite zippy to get through city, especially if you're trying to navigate with Brisbane drivers who all drive Hiluxes and Land Cruisers and just kind of pull out in front of you all the time.
Yeah, all the time, every single time. One thing I have noticed specifically about this car, might be the age of the transmission, but when you put your foot down, it does take a while for it to realise that you've put your foot down.
There is quite a bit of delay in doing that. In fact, if we were driving right now and I planted my foot, there'd be at least a 2 to 3 second delay.
Yeah.
And then the revs would go all the way up.
All the way up.
All of the revs.
6,000 RPM it would go up to.
It does. But the speedometer, it doesn't follow it.
Makes a lot of noise and doesn't really go. But as we were saying before, it's a very practical car for a city, which means we're going to conduct some tests. This is the final part of our review on the 323. This is the fun part. This is where we get into the test, which we have very sensibly dressed up in our safety uniform. The first test we are going to be doing with the 323 is the speed test. Sir?
Nah.
Seat belt testing?
Don't think so.
McDonald's drive-through testing.
Definitely not.
That might be a licensing issue.
I really wanted a drink.
What can we do?
So after much deliberation, we've come up with an idea. Trunk space.
So what we're going to do, right, we're going to do this for the 3 other cars too, because we're not allowed to do anything with them, is find out which can hold the most stuff. Now we've got have we got shopping?
No. We didn't have the budget for shopping.
So what the hell's light enough for us to put in there? Well, as we said, we figured out the test that we're going to be doing, and unfortunately we have figured out the unit of measurement, and this is going to be universal for all of the tests that we're doing. We're going to figure out how many Welshmen you can fit in the boot of a used Mazda. Safety equipment is on. I'm gonna... Okay.
There you go. 1 Welshman fits.
Not very well!
That is about the space of 4/5 of a Welshman.
However, one thing this car does have over the other 2 is a ridiculous amount of space, because if you need more than 1 Welshman in the boot of your car...
Should you need more than 1? Should you need another Welshman in the back of your Mazda? There we go, we figured out that the Mazda 323 is at the moment the best of the 3 cars, mostly because we haven't actually done anything with the other 2. Thank you very much for joining us on this, the very first episode of Star Car Garage, the show. Join us next week, where we'll be reviewing the slightly newer Mazda 3. Bye for now. Oh, are you really gonna...
Yep.
Yeah.
What?